who said she secretly gave birth to 5 babies in her bathtub and hid the bodies in a closet, has pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to a maximum of 20 to 40 years in prison. 4 of the babies were stillborn, but the third born, a boy, had moved. That death was the basis for the 1 count of murder. Michele Kalina conceived the babies through a long affair with a coworker and hid the pregnancies from him and her husband. She told a psychiatrist she had wrapped each baby with a towel and then stored the body in a tub or container in a locked closet. She thought 4 were essentially stillborn and denied doing anything malicious. Styfied Dr. Jerome Godefense, a defense psychiatrist. She said she might have wrapped the baby too tightly with a towel so that the baby couldn't breathe. Dr. Gottlieb said that boy's body was then encased in cement and stored with the others, in a cooler, tub, or cardboard box in a closet. The 5 bodies decomposed for years until her teenage daughter found the skeletal remains last year. By then, authorities could not determine how the babies had died. Kalina, a home health aide, also pleaded guilty today to 5 counts each of abuse of a corpse and concealing a child's death. Dr. Gottlieb described her as an alcoholic who was intoxicated during the births and does not fully recall what took place. She also suffers from severe depression and other mental health issues, he said. Public defender Holly Feeney sought leniency because Kalina had learned to deny reality as she endured severe physical and sexual abuse as a child. Dr. Gottlieb suggested she put memories of the babies in a psychological closet, much as she put their remains in a physical one. Jeffrey Kalina, 54, a disabled stay-at-home father for much of their 25-year marriage, testified that he still loves his wife and would have raised the lovers' children had he known about them. Sure, of course, day 1, moment 1, he said. Throughout questioning, he said their marriage had not been sexual in 18 years and said he had not seen his wife naked during that time when she carried babies to full or nearly full-term births. Only once in 2003 did he suspect his wife might be pregnant, but his daughter rejected the idea. Kalina went on to deliver that baby at a Reading hospital. She told the staff she was separated and gave the girl up for adoption. DNA tests show the girl is also the lover's child. Kalina had gone to Albright College for 3 semesters before marrying in 1986 at age 19. The couple's first child, Andrew, was born the following year, but suffered from cerebral palsy and severe developmental delays. Jeffrey Kalina blamed the problems on a bad delivery. Michele Kalina cared for the boy at home for 7 years before her husband was laid off. She became the caregiver to Andrew and their daughter, Elizabeth, born in 1991. Andrew died of natural causes in 2000. Jeffrey Kalina said that Kalina sometimes worked 70 hours a week or more to support the family. She started an affair with a coworker in 1996 and became pregnant that year. He declined to testify or attend today's hearing and has not returned calls for comments left at his reading area home. According to Dr. Gottlieb, he at one point refused Kalina's request to use condoms during their affair. Kalina pleads guilty to third-degree murder in the death of an infant. Michele GM. Kalina pleaded guilty this morning in Berks County Court to third-degree murder for one of the 5 infants she initially was accused of killing between 1996 to 2010. You are throwing yourself at the court's mercy, Judge Linda K.M. Ludgate said. Kalina, 45, of the 700 block of Court Street, also pleaded guilty to concealing the death of a child and abuse of a corpse. Ludgate said the agreement calls for a sentence of no more than 40 years. Assistant District Attorney M. Teresa Johnson asked Kalina if is she admitting to killing one of the 5 infants. I do, Kalina responded. Kalina also said she abused the corpses of 5 infants. Kalina is accused of murder in the death of a male infant of gestational age from 32 to 38 weeks old, according to records. The infant was found encased in cement in a cooler in Kalina's closet on July 29th. Kalina is married, but investigators said the father of all 5 infants is Kalina's boyfriend, whom they have not identified. Kalina's daughter, Elizabeth, 19, testified that her mother was always lovely to her and that they did things together. She would take me to carnivals and amusement parks, Elizabeth said. She said her mother worked many hours as a home health aide to help pay bills. Elizabeth said her older brother, Andrew, who had cerebral palsy, died. She said she loves her mother and will continue to visit her in prison. In other testimony, the defendant's husband, Jeffrey Kalina, 54, said the couple had been married 25 years and dated for 2 years before marrying. He said he was unaware that his wife had 5 infants. He said he loves his wife, writes to her, and plans to stay married. Under cross-examination, he said he was unaware his wife was having an affair. She was working on weekends, he said. He said he stopped having physical relations with his wife in 1992. He said he did not know his wife was pregnant and that she had a baby on August 23, 2003, in St. Joseph Medical Center. He said he had forgiven his wife for the affair. Dr. Jerome Gottlieb, a Lancaster County psychiatrist, said Kalina was sexually and verbally abused when she was younger and suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Gottlieb said Kalina remembers little about the births of the 5 babies. She shows no emotion, Gottlieb said. It's like she is talking about someone else. He said Kalina denied she was pregnant. He said she gave birth to the first child in a bathtub and denied doing anything to hasten the death. At first she said she gave birth to stillborns, Gottlieb said. She referred to all 5 of these babies as fetuses, emotionally detaching herself. Gottlieb said Kalina was intoxicated during the pregnancies and when she gave birth. She could not explain why she chose to put the babies in a container and then in the closet, he said. Gottlieb said Kalina kept the remains to remind her of her shame for having an affair. She said she may have wrapped one baby too tightly with a towel, and the baby could not breathe. Pennsylvania. Mom pleads guilty to murder. After baby skeletons found in closet. Pennsylvania. Woman pleaded guilty today to murdering one of her infant children after the skeletal remains of 5 babies were found in her home. Michele Kalina, 45, expressed remorse at her sentencing but has not confessed to killing all 5 newborns she gave birth to secretly. A Berks County judge sentenced her to between 20 and 40 years in prison. In July 2010, Kalina's husband and teenage daughter discovered containers in a storage closet in the family's Reading home that contained the remains of 5 infants. According to court documents, they were found in storage containers in an insulated cooler. One body was encased in concrete, Berks County District Attorney John Adams said. It was a very bizarre case. The others were wrapped in garbage bags. The skeletal remains were estimated to be from 32 weeks in gestation to newly born. There were 5 skeletal remains, but because of the condition of those skeletal remains, it was tough to determine a cause of death. But we had enough information to charge her with one body, Adams told ABCnews.com. In addition to the third-degree murder charge, Kalina was found guilty of abusing the corpse of an infant and failing to report the death of a child. Kalina, a home health nurse's aide, was carrying on an affair and neither her lover nor her husband knew about her pregnancies, according to court documents. Kalina gave birth to another child in October 2003 at St. Joseph's Medical Center and gave that child up for adoption, according to court documents. The Reading Eagle reported that her husband of 25 years testified during Kalina's trial that he still loves his wife and plans to stay married to her. He testified that they stopped being intimate in 1992. Her boyfriend, who she dated intermittently since 1996, has not been identified by authorities. When Kalina's stomach appeared bigger to her boyfriend, she told him it was a cyst, according to court documents. The boyfriend told authorities that the cyst returned at least 2 to 3 times, according to court records. It's unclear when Kalina gave birth to the children. Our investigation revealed that she hid these pregnancies and births from everyone, said District Attorney Adams in a press release. Unfortunately, there are many questions that only Ms. Kalina can answer. Kalina told authorities that her husband and daughter were forbidden from going into her closet, and that she had been meaning to clean that closet, according to court documents. Her defense team claimed she had a mental illness and had suffered sexual and psychological abuse as a child. A psychiatrist testified that Kalina remembers little, if anything, about the births of the infants, the Reading Eagle reported. She shows no emotion, said Dr. Jerome Gottlieb. It's like she is talking about someone else. Kalina's 19-year-old daughter also testified and described her mother as a good mother. Kalina also had a son born with cerebral palsy who died at age 13. Kalina will not enter a plea today in baby deaths. Action News has learned that accused murderer Michele Kalina will not enter a plea or be sentenced today as previously anticipated, on charges she killed 5 babies born after hidden pregnancies and kept their remains in a locked closet. Kalina is expected to undergo further psychological testing. Attorneys on both sides will meet in court to outline the schedule. DNA tests show Kalina, 45, of Reading conceived most, if not all, of the babies through an affair with a co-worker. Neither he nor Kalina's husband knew about the pregnancies. Kalina, a home health aide, is charged with 1 count of criminal homicide and multiple counts of abuse of corpse and concealing the death of a child. A gag order prevents lawyers from discussing the plea or whether Kalina's mental health is at issue. Her teenage daughter found the remains last year and called police. One set of bones had been entombed in cement and the others in a cooler, a plastic tub and a cardboard box. It may be how women resolve these dilemmas. I'm pregnant again, and I don't want to abort the child, but I don't want anybody to know that I have the child, said Jeffrey R. McKee, a forensic psychologist at the University of South Carolina School of Medicine, who wrote the book, Why Mothers Kill. Women who kill newborns are usually young, first-time mothers, who are afraid to reveal their pregnancies, he said. Kalina doesn't fit that demographic but may share a similar motivation, given the on-again, off-again affair, which continued for over a decade. Such women are rarely found to be mentally ill, he said. There are some who are, McKee told the Associated Press, but often it's not a contributing cause to the neonaticide. More often it's the death designed to avoid being detected as pregnant. Kalina started dating the co-worker in 1997 and soon appeared to be gaining weight. She told him she had a cyst, which she later said had been drained, according to police affidavits. The cyst recurred 3 or 4 more times over the years. The boyfriend, whose identity has not been disclosed, told police, Kalina, a petite woman, had no prenatal care during the 5 pregnancies and it's not clear where she gave birth. In addition to those babies, Kalina had a 6th secret pregnancy that culminated with the birth of a baby girl in a Reading hospital in 2003. She gave the girl up for adoption. DNA tests performed after Kalina's arrest in August showed that the child was also conceived with the boyfriend. He learned of her existence last year. She had 2 children with her husband Jeffrey in 1987 and 1991. The oldest, Andrew, was severely disabled and died of natural causes in 2000. In 2008, the family, including the teen daughter, moved from a house in Reading to a high-rise downtown for people with disabilities. Her husband is disabled. Kalina allegedly moved the remains from an outside shed at the home to a closet at the apartment and warned the other family members not to open it. According to her family, she worked long hours, earning praise from her employer and the families of elderly patients she nursed. Yet she conceded in police interviews that she had alcoholism, sometimes prone to blackouts. The U.S. legal system in recent years has hardened its view of women who kill their children. In 1999, 70-year-old Marie Noe of Philadelphia was sentenced to 5 years of house arrest and 20 years of probation for killing 8 babies decades earlier. "All I can figure is that I'm ungodly sick," Noe said in a police confession, in which she admitted smothering 3 of her children with pillows. There is far less empathy today after a line of U.S. filicide cases that includes Susan Smith, the South Carolina woman who drove her 2 children into a lake in 1994, Christina Riggs, who smothered her 2 young sons in Arkansas in 1997, and Andrea Yates of Houston, who drowned her 5 children in a bathtub in 2001. Yates is serving a life sentence after the jury rejected her insanity defense. Smith, sentenced to 30 years to life, is eligible for parole in 2025. Riggs was executed. Kalina, not unlike some other women accused of infanticide, appears to have lived a somewhat isolated life. She had no extended family nearby, and investigators found no close female friends in her life. It's unclear if the boyfriend will be in court to hear Kalina's fate. DNA tests show he fathered at least 3 and possibly 4 of the 5 slain infants. There was not enough material from the 5th set to test. Johnson once described him as overwhelmed and shocked by the news. He wants the babies to receive a proper burial someday, she said. Defense lawyer Holly Feeney has not commented on a possible defense strategy, nor returned calls for comment despite the gag order. Not guilty plea in Pa baby killing case. A woman pleaded not guilty to numerous charges on Tuesday morning after the remains of 5 babies were allegedly found in her home. Michele Kalina, 44, was arraigned on charges of homicide, aggravated assault, endangering the welfare of children, reckless endangerment, and abuse of a corpse. Also, during the hearing, the judge issued a gag order. The gag order prevents anyone involved in the prosecution or defense of Kalina from talking about it publicly. Investigators said Kalina hid all 5 sets of remains in a closet inside the apartment building in the 700 block of Court Street in Reading, where she lived with her husband and teenage daughter. These remains were all badly decomposed skeletal remains, Berks County District Attorney John Adams said previously. They said at least 4 of the 5 babies were the product of an extramarital affair between Kalina and her boyfriend. Adams said Kalina lied to her husband and her boyfriend to mask her pregnancies and gave her family strict orders not to go in the closet. Kalina's daughter broke that rule, found the containers, and tipped off police, investigators said. Upon further investigation, detectives said Kalina's daughter also unknowingly threw out one of the sets of remains. It was later found by a cadaver dog at the Conestoga landfill in New Morgan. Mystery of Michele Kalina. Reading infant homicides baffle experts. Mental health experts find it challenging to explain the deaths of 5 Reading newborns because they've never seen a case quite like it. The mother is charged. A Reading mother is accused of killing 5 of her infants and storing their remains in containers at home. It's a case that even experts are at a loss to explain or understand. They're struggling for answers and theories because they have no point of reference. For the charges against 44-year-old Michele G.M. Kalina, we can't comment on a motive because this is unique, said Dr. Avidan Milevsky, associate psychology professor at Kutztown University. Milevsky, like other professionals interviewed, is not working on the Kalina case. At the end of the day, we have to admit that sometimes we never have a motive, Milevsky said of psychologists who look at criminal cases. This is such a disturbing case that we have nothing to compare it to. Prosecutors in Kalina's case do not have an explanation or motive for the crimes. Cases of mothers killing their newborns typically involve only one baby, the expert said. There is a recent case in France similar to Kalina's, but experts are unaware of any other case in the US involving multiple deaths of newborns. In Villers-au-Tertre, northern France, Dominique Cottret, 45, is accused of strangling 8 newborns and hiding the remains in a garage from 1988 to 2007. The case is pending in court, and local experts are unfamiliar with it. One theory, despite the unusual nature of the Kalina case, Dr. Peggy Bowen Hartung of Alvernia University does have a theory. She meets the definition of a serial killer, said Bowen Hartung, who specializes in forensic psychology and is chairwoman of psychology and counseling at Alvernia. It's not uncommon for a serial killer to keep them as trophies as remembrance, she said of remains. The babies were so young she did not allow maternal attachments. This is a bizarre case. Investigators said Kalina, a home care aide for older people, gave birth to the babies between 1996 and 2010, while she was having an affair with a man whose name authorities have not released. Officials said they have determined that the boyfriend is the father of 3 of the infants and is likely the father of the other 2. Kalina is accused of hiding the pregnancies from the boyfriend and from her husband, Jeffrey E. Kalina, 54, and their daughter, Elizabeth, 19, then killing the infants. They ranged in gestational age from 32 to 43 weeks old when they died, according to prosecutors. Investigators said the remains of 4 babies were kept in plastic containers and that fifth was found in a plastic bag in the closet of her apartment. In the 700 block of Court Street, illness might be a factor. Dr. J. Kenneth Weiss, a forensic psychiatrist at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, said the first step for the defense would be to have Kalina evaluated for mental illness. Multiple deaths are uncommon, Weiss said. Many women are horrified by the thought of having a baby, but usually they tell someone about it before they kill the baby. Weiss said most women who kill their babies are suffering from a form of postpartum depression. You have to find out if she had a mental illness, Weiss said. What were her other circumstances? These may have been unplanned pregnancies. What was she intending when she conceived? That sort of pattern would lead one to believe she has a mental illness. Bowen Hartung said the Kalina case has similarities to the case of Mary Beth Tinning, 68, of Dwaynesburg, NY, who was serving 20 years to life in prison for killing a 3-month-old. Authorities said she could be responsible for killing 7 other children, but has not been tried or convicted for those deaths. Tinning admitted to killing 1 infant, but has told authorities that the other deaths were accidental. Prosecutors did not have enough evidence to prosecute Tinning in the other deaths, because she brought the children to a hospital, where all the deaths were ruled accidental. Bowen Hartung said Tinning suffers from Munchausen syndrome, which involves killing children for attention, unanswered questions. She said the deaths in the Kalina case could be considered neonaticide, the killing of a child less than 1 month old. The babies were so young she did not allow maternal attachments, Bowen Hartung said. My question is, where was her husband? Where was her daughter? It's weird. It's bizarre. Did anyone around smell anything or call the apartment building superintendent? If it smelled so bad, why didn't neighbors call? Bowen Hartung said neighbors might not have wanted to get involved. The number of babies intrigues Bowen Hartung. Why, she wondered, would someone carry the babies to near term, allowing one to be adopted but killing the others? Investigators said Kalina wrote a letter to her boyfriend in 2003, in which she informed him that she had delivered a girl and offered it for adoption. A possible defense, Bowen Hartung said, Kalina might try to claim that she is not guilty because of insanity. If such a defense were successful, Kalina would be committed to a mental health institution. Milevsky said about 70% of women suffer postpartum depression for a few weeks after delivery, and that about 10% of women have more severe depression with symptoms that linger for months. He said it appears Kalina has severe postpartum psychosis, a condition he said affects less than 1% of women. Usually the mothers going through severe extreme psychosis would be the ones more likely to kill infants, he said. Once a mother harms a baby, she enters into a mental dysfunction that is unimaginable, Milevsky said. Mother charged with murder after killing 5 of her newborn babies and keeping their bodies locked in a closet for 14 years. A woman who conceived several children through an extramarital affair and killed at least 4 of her newborns was charged with murder today. Michele Kalina, 44, kept the remains in her closet, stored in plastic tubs or encased in concrete for up to 14 years until her disabled husband and daughter found them in July. Authorities say at least 4 infants were born alive but killed soon after birth. Tests on a 5th set of remains remain inconclusive about when the baby died. Kalina, a nurse's aide from Reading, Pennsylvania, also bore a 6th child from the same affair in 2003, but gave that baby up for adoption. Kalina and her husband Jeffrey have a teenage daughter and a 13-year-old son with cerebral palsy who died in 2000 after a long illness. His death is not said to be suspicious. The husband and daughter found 5 sets of infant remains in a closet this summer in plastic tubs, one of which was filled with cured cement, police said. In interviews in early August, Kalina told police she had forbidden her husband and daughter from going in the closet and said she had been meaning to clean it. District Attorney John T. Adams said in a news conference this afternoon, I'm very confident we have all the babies. DNA tests show the bones found in a locked closet came from 5 newborns. At least 4 of the babies were born at or near term, then killed in a manner consistent with asphyxia, poisoning, or neglect, authorities determined. Tests on a 5th baby were inconclusive. Kalina's boyfriend fathered 3 and possibly 4 of the victims, investigators said. Kalina will be held without bail pending a preliminary hearing scheduled for Thursday. She has been in custody since August on abuse of corpse charges. Her public defender, Holly Feeney, declined to comment today after Kalina was arraigned on criminal homicide, aggravated assault, and other charges. Kalina denied that she had had any other children or pregnancies until confronted with the adoption paperwork, police said. Officers who responded to a call from Kalina's daughter did not think the bones were human at first and told her and her father they could throw them out. Later that day, the pair called again to say they had found additional remains. Investigators then suspected the bones were indeed human. One bone from the remains that was thrown out was later recovered at a landfill site, but did not provide enough evidence for officials to determine whether the baby was born alive. Authorities said Mr. Kalina had suspected at least once that his wife was pregnant, but her boyfriend, who was not identified and in no way connected with the murders, said he was unaware she was carrying his children. He said he had noticed her abdomen growing after they began dating in 1996. Kalina covered up the pregnancies by telling him she had cysts on her fallopian tubes that she had drained at a hospital, he said. The cysts returned several times over the years, he said. An affidavit in the case states that Kalina had an exemplary work history, with 14 years at a home health agency, and no maternity or extended medical leaves. Police did not find any records to show she had received prenatal care or given birth in any local hospitals, except for the birth of her daughter, who was adopted. Kalina acknowledged to police that she was an alcoholic prone to blackouts. Until her arrest, she lived in a high-rise apartment with her husband, who was disabled, and their teenage daughter. Mr. Kalina told authorities the containers had been moved to the apartment with other belongings from their prior home. Michele Kalina, married mom, charged with secretly killing 5 babies. She had with her boyfriend, Michele Kalina, always told her husband and 19-year-old daughter Elizabeth to stay out of a closet at their apartment in Reading, Pennsylvania. And they did, for 2 years at least. But in July, Elizabeth called Reading police to say she'd found human remains in the closet. They had been kept in a cooler. Officers arrived but told Elizabeth and her dad, Jeffrey Kalina, that these were not human remains. So the cops left and the Kalinas threw them in the trash. But that same night they would call the police again. This time, they had found 2 more containers holding what they thought to be human remains. Police would be more thorough the second time they visited, finding 3 suspicious containers, one of which had been filled in at the top with cement. Week later, police searched the apartment again, this time finding bones in a plastic bag and a letter Jeffrey's wife Michele had written to her boyfriend 7 years before, saying she'd had a baby girl in 2003 but that she'd given it to the Catholic Church for adoption. By the time the investigation concluded, police would come up with an astonishing story. It seems Michele Kalina had been carrying on an affair for 14 long years with an unnamed man. During that time, she'd given birth to 5 of the man's children, 3 boys, 1 girl, and another baby, whose gender couldn't be identified. It seems her husband and daughter never knew that she was pregnant. Her boyfriend noticed her growing stomach, but each time, Michele explained it away, claiming she had a cyst on her fallopian tubes. Michele gave birth to 5 babies between 1996 and 2000. Then she either killed them or allowed them to die, keeping their remains in her family's apartment. Reading police have now charged her with abuse of a corpse and undetermined counts of homicide.